In this video for the KCAD Digital Art and Design Augmented Reality Framework, I'm going to show you how to use the example as a template to replace with your own work and assets and make your own unique project out of it. So we start out by following the directions in previous videos about how to set up an image target asset and a video asset. So very quickly, I went ahead and found the KCAD Communications Brand Resources website and found the Spark K logo, clicked on the large one. I downloaded this and then ran it through the MindAR image targets compiler. Went ahead and downloaded that compiled image target asset. And here in the root of my downloads, I have the targets.mind file that was downloaded from that. And then I also found a different video that I want to use, a KCAD DLC video. I can preview it real quickly. The beginning there, you can see that it is 720p pixel dimensions. It's compressed nicely, 15.2 megabytes for just over a minute. So it's a pretty good web-ready MP4 video. So before we replace these assets, let's go ahead and open up the framework in Adobe Animate. Go into the framework folder. I'm going to double-click this KCAD AR framework.fla animate file, and that opens it inside of Adobe Animate here. Now we're going to go ahead and launch this on Mac. I'm going to hit Command Return. On a PC, it'll be Control Enter, and that will have Adobe Animate launch a web server, which will open in your default browser and run the application locally. And just to make sure that it's working and ready to go, we're going to test it on my laptop with a webcam. I'm going to hit Go, give it a moment to initialize. And there we are. I can take my printed image of KCAD building, and there we go. You can see the AR picked up as expected.
Entertainment art.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go back. And now let's begin turning this into our own unique project. So from here, I'm going to go back to my Finder to take a look at my files, and really, outside of changing the splash screen, to just create a new image target and a new video after we've prepared the assets, it's as easy as just copying them and pasting them into the right location. So that location is inside of the web folder here, inside of examples, and then our AR image video example and assets. Here's where our two assets are. You can see targets.mind, that's named the same because that's what it's automatically named when we download the image target asset from the MindAR image target asset generator. And then we just have our MP4 named asset.mp4. Now it's important to name our new assets the exact same so that we don't have to go into the code and change the reference to the files. So targets.mind is already named the same, but I'm going to go ahead and rename this KCAD DLC MP4 to asset.mp4. And then once I've renamed these, I can just copy them, select them both, right click and copy. I'm going to go into that other assets folder, web, examples, AR image video, assets, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste these two items and replace them both. And now we have the new assets in here. So if I go back to my KCAD AR framework project, now if I don't launch it again, or if I just hit go without refreshing, chances are it's not going to pick up the new target. Let's take a look. So the new target I already have printed out, and it's not picking this one up. It will probably pick the old one up still. Yes, it is. And that's because our application is cached in the browser and it has not updated for the user with the new assets that are in there, both the video and the image. So we can try just holding Shift and hitting refresh on the browser, and that will make the most recent files load in terms of the interface, but that probably won't have an effect on here either because the image and the video are cached locally in our browser. But we'll go ahead and take a look. Let's try the old one. Okay, and that's still that way. So that's a really important distinction because when you are developing and testing things locally, it's really important to understand when you need to clear the cache on your browser to be able to see the most recent updates. Now, especially when we're not even changing the files that were loaded in the browser, we're literally just overwrote a couple of files that have already been downloaded and cached, then we need to clear out our browser cache in the right way so it's going to use these new files. So what we'll do in Chrome here, it's going to go up to, let's see, where is it? Okay, so in Chrome, History, I'll click Show Full History, and then here under Clear Browsing Data, you don't need to clear everything, all of your cookies and site settings and autofill information. You just need to have checked cached images and files. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's checked, click Clear Data, and now I can go back to my local framework. You can see in the URL here that'll have some IP address like this that Animate automatically creates a little local web server for you to see the files. And now that we've cleared our cache, I'm going to hit Shift Refresh just to be safe, to make sure it's loaded again, although I'm not sure I even needed to do that. And this time, when I click on Go, those cached files should be gone. So if I try the old image target, it's not having an effect anymore. And now if I try the new one, there it is. It's tracking our new video and everything's showing up properly. Now, one thing you may notice is the aspect ratio of this image target is much different. The original one was 16 by 9, just like the video, so the video fit nicely, perfectly over it. This one is more of a square, and the aspect ratio is the same, so I can see a little bit of the target around the video. That's something I'll show you how we can adjust in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to go back now, and it's that easy again to replace once you create your image target asset and your video asset, to just go ahead and name them the same thing and replace them in this folder. And as long as you clear your browser cache, then you're good to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and just delete my original versions of these just to clean up the downloads folder. You'll probably leave yours wherever you grabbed them from. Now the next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and update the splash screen itself. So I'm going to go into Adobe Animate. And inside of here, we're going to make some edits to this and then relaunch it so we can change the branding of our application splash screen. So inside of Animate here, we can see on the main timeline, there's only a single layer. It's called Root. And if I select this, I can take a look at the Properties panel and see that it is a movie clip. It's named Root. I can even look in the library and I can see that I've got different folders for images and graphics and buttons, and those are all neatly tucked away. And in the root of the library, I just have my single Root movie clip. And you may have even noticed that on the timeline down here, this is actually a guide layer. You can tell by this little slide rule icon. And this means that when I publish this, it's not actually going to create all of these elements in JavaScript independently. And if I publish this without the accompanying JavaScript code files, you wouldn't see anything on the screen. So what's happening here is I'm actually extracting all of the JavaScript that you could write inside of Adobe Animate into separate JavaScript module files, and that just makes it much cleaner from a development standpoint to separate the code from Animate, but it's still extremely useful to use Animate to lay out the graphics and then just pull them in through the code kind of under the hood in a way that you won't need to worry about. So what we need to do to make edits to this is to go ahead and just double click once we've unlocked the layer, if it was locked, double click to get inside of the symbol. You can see up here, scene 1, and now we're inside of the root symbol. And here's all of our layers, our KCAD logo layer, the DAD logo, the title, the black box, and the buttons. And from here, we can really make any change we like, with the exception of we need to make sure that there is a clickable button, even if it's the entire page. We need to make sure there's at least one clickable button that has the property name or the instance name button 1. And that is being controlled through the JavaScript files to tell it to launch our AR application from this. So as long as we have a button that has an instance name button 1, when we click it, that will go ahead and fire. So we can change anything else on this screen. So let's go ahead and make some changes. I'm going to start out by getting rid of the title layer. I'm going to delete that completely. And I'm also going to get rid of the digital art design logo layer. I'm going to delete that completely. Well, let's get rid of the black box. Delete that. Whoops. Delete that completely. So we end up with just these. I can see the registration point is centered. Maybe I'm going to center the logo instead of keeping it at the top. So I'll grab the logo, and then I'll open the align panel. Oops. Make sure align to stage is checked. And then I'll center that. And maybe let's go get a color instead of white to use. So I'm going to go back to the browser. I'm going to go back to the KCAD Communications Brand Resources and Brand Standards page. Click on the KCAD Brand Colors link, and that opens up. And let's use this blue, which gives me this hex right here that we'll copy. 00B7C6, in case it doesn't copy very well. Go back into Animate, and maybe we'll change the stage color here and paste in that hex. And that did not copy correctly. An extra F in there. Just select the whole thing, paste it again. There we go. Okay, so that's a color. Now, ideally, I could go back and get a transparent version of this logo so it doesn't have white behind it and it doesn't just look like a block in the middle. But for now, for these purposes, we'll just leave it as is. So we've changed the background color, gotten rid of some elements, moved this element around. Let's take this button and maybe move it up a little bit. And we can even go inside of the button and change whatever we like about the button, as long as we leave it with an instance name of button 1 up here. So I'm going to double click, go inside of this. I can see that there's a box. Maybe I'll change this from black to white. I'll select the box. Looks like this is also a graphic symbol inside of here. Let's see, does that change? That just changes that. I'll go in here, change this to white, make it pop a little more on that blue. Go back up a level, and now I have to change the color of my label from, oh, looks like that is also a graphic symbol. So I'll double click, see I keep going one level deeper. I went from the main scene to the root, and then inside of the root, I double clicked and went inside of the button, and in the button, I double clicked and went inside of this graphic button label. So we're now 3 or 4 levels deep. And now I can change the color. Maybe I'll make that black. So when I go back up 1 level of the button, I can look at the button states, and still see it has a nice down state, so it feels like when I click it or I touch it that I'm interacting with it. And I'll go back up to the root. And now this is our new look. So we could go ahead and just hit Command Return or Control Enter again to just launch this again in a new tab. But what I like to do once I already have a tab open in the browser, especially if I have the console open and I'm doing some debugging, is I like to just go to File, Publish, and that'll publish all the files, and then I can click back to my browser, go back to my tab that I had this open, and then if I just hold Shift and hit refresh, it will force load the new application. So there we go. Now we have our fresh new splash screen that's been changed and edited. And this can be anything you like. Once again, let me go back into Animate just for a moment. And as long as we go from the main root timeline, as long as we leave this with just a single element on here called root, and it's a guide layer like this, if I look in the library, I actually have a linkage identifier for root, and that's what the JavaScript allows me to pull it in. And as long as I keep everything within that, so I double click and go inside of root, so there's really two specifications to keep this working. Number one is we need to make sure that we put everything inside of this root object. So we go in, and now we're in here, and now we're really able to do anything we want on this timeline, including add motion, add sound, animation, even add interactivity, make them solve a little puzzle or something before they actually, reveal the button that allows them to view the AR. The possibilities are really endless when it comes to what this splash screen can be. This is just a very simple example. And besides making sure that you're inside of the root movie clip to make any changes to the interface, the other specification is to make sure that you at least have a single button that has the instance name button1. And that can look any way you want, that can be labeled any way you want. It just needs to have that instance name so the existing code knows that when you click that button, it will launch the AR. So let's go back to our browser. And let's go ahead and click this and try it out. And there it goes. So now finally, let me show you how we can actually adjust the scale of the video to make it work differently on different size, shapes of image cards. Go back here. And we're actually, for the first time, going to get our hands dirty with the code a little bit. We're going to open up one of these files and make an edit directly to the code in order to change the scale of the video. I'll show you how that works. Now, we'll start in the Finder, and I'll show you the file that we're going to edit. We'll go into our KCAD AR Framework folder, and we did a video that went through all of these files in the file structure and explained what they do. It may be worthwhile reviewing that after making through all the videos, and it may make a little more sense than the initial run through. And from here, we're going to go into our examples folder, and inside of our examples folder, we have our AR image video. This is where we got to our assets before, where we copied our asset.mp4 and our targets.mine. But what we're going to want to open is we're going to want to open this index.html file. Now we can't just double click on it because that will open it in the browser and it will run it like an application, or at least attempt to. What we want to do is we want to open this with a text editor or code editor. Now Windows comes with Notepad or WordPad. Mac comes with TextEdit, and you can use these basic simple text editors to edit code, but it is much easier and highly recommended to use an actual code editor. So let me show you one that I highly recommend. Visual Studio Code. This is an open source code editor that has gained a lot of traction over the last couple of years in the developer community. It's free to use. You can go ahead and download it right here from code.visualstudio.com. And if you take a couple of minutes to download this, then it'll be much easier in terms of highlighting in different colors and code hinting. It just gives you a lot of power, even for making simple edits to something that'll be a lot easier to do than just seeing it in black and white in a basic text editor. So once you have downloaded and installed Visual Studio Code here, when you open it up, it should look something like this. It just has a get started page, and you could learn more about it or whatnot. And I'm even going to just close this, so we're just left with this empty area. Open my Finder, and we can actually just take our index.html file. Show you one more time where I got to this from the root KCAD AR Framework folder. Go into Web, Examples, AR Image Video, and then it's this index.html file. And we're going to go ahead and drag this. There we go. Drag this onto VS Studio Code, or just open it with it, however you want to do that. And this gives us our code for the example. Now, there's not much code here. This is a very simple HTML file, but this is what these different JavaScript libraries like A-Frame and Mind.AR do is it abstracts a lot of functionality and code into some simple HTML markup for us to put things together. So this is our example, and all you need to do is scroll down to the bottom here where we see this A video tag. And inside of this, we have a position, a rotation, and a scale. And these are all things that you can edit and play with. Each one has 3 parameters, an X, Y, and Z in the 3D space. And depending on the AR framework or on the image target, which one of these is going to affect which part of your video, you really just kind of have to start changing them and testing and see what happens. Now, in this case, the scale, I'm actually, instead of 111, I'm having it 0.5625 in the middle parameter. And this, it was gotten from the aspect ratio 16.9, 16 by 9. So let me show you what I mean. If I open up a calculator here, and 16:9 is the aspect ratio for a traditional HD 1020p or 720p video. And what I'll do is I'll just take 9 divided by 16. And that gives me 0.5625. We could do the same thing with the actual dimensions. So our video is 1280 by 720, I believe. So if I take 720 divided by 1280, we get the same aspect ratio, 0.5625. And that's what I have in there. Now, that works great if our image target is also that aspect ratio, but the default is just a square. So if we had more of a square image target, which we do have now with our KCAD, our KSpark logo, I'm going to change this and actually set this to 1 instead. And I'm going to be sure to hit save. Something else I should have mentioned inside of Adobe Animate, you want to be sure and file, save, and save your work after you've made any changes. And here we are back in the browser where I'll go ahead and click on the Go button to launch the AR part of our application. I have the KCAD Spark image target ready printed out, and as I reveal it, there we go. As you can see, the scale is now changed and it takes up a full square and fills up all of the image target and doesn't leave anything on the sides. Now you may not be able to tell clearly in this video, but do be aware that it is not cropping the video, it's actually scaling it to make it this new size. So if you do change the scale from the default 16 by 9 that the application example is, you want to make sure and change the actual pixel values of your video to match the aspect ratio. So in this case, with a perfectly square video, we probably want to render this video out, crop it ourselves, and make a 1200 by 1200 pixel video or something like that. So just something to watch out for and be aware of if you start playing around with the video scale. I'll go ahead and go back. And that was how to use the framework for your own needs and to replace the assets and launch it and test it locally to be able to bring your own application to life. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to use multiple targets instead of this one where you just kind of swapped out the single targets. I'll show you how we can edit the JavaScript to include more than one image target and more than one video in the same application.